Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami, the Miami Herald show about all things Inter Miami and soccer. I am your host, Andre Fernandez, Deputy Sports Editor, joined once again by Michelle Kaufman, as always, our Inter Miami beat writer who is fresh off Inter Miami practice. In fact, we're recording this as Michelle is at Inter Miami Stadium right now. She's got a lot of nuggets for you in this show, a lot of info, a lot of updates, primarily Lionel Messi. What's the latest with him? We're going to talk a little bit about the latest signing up by the team of one of Messi's friends, former teammate Oscar Ustari, who's now going to be the backup goalie to Drake Callender. Michelle talked to him along with the media this morning. We'll look at Inter Miami trying to pad that lead, trying to keep that supporter shield top spot right now with 7 games to go. The Philadelphia Union is up next. We'll preview that game. And we'll talk a little bit about Aviles and his yellow card, red card problems. Can he keep that in check? As well as the Golden Boot race. Can it Pistolero win it this year? Can Luis Suarez do it? He's been on fire lately. Can he keep it going? And also, of course, away from Inter Miami, just in the soccer world, some big news this week. The U.S. men's national team finally has a new coach, and they hired a familiar face to Lionel Messi and anyone from Argentina.
Yes, they hired
from Argentina.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mauricio Pochettino, big name. They wanted a big name, and they got a big name. So we'll discuss that too today.
Yeah, we'll get that too. But let's start with Messi, Michelle. Tell us a little bit. Let's take a look. Messi was not when you and the media were allowed to watch, not there, but there was a sign that he was in the building. Let's take a look.
Good morning from Inter Miami training Wednesday morning. Everybody is pretty much out there getting ready for the Philadelphia game on Saturday, except for Leo Messi. He seems to be somewhere inside that building because his bodyguard is standing near the door, which is always a sign that he's here. But he is not out at training yet. He had been training last week. Here's the rest of the team, and including, if you can look in the back and see the goalkeepers. The new one is Oscar Ustari, the Argentine keeper who's 38 years old, a friend of Messi's, a longtime teammate of his, was signed to be a backup to Drake Callender because CJ Dos Santos is injured. So he's here as a backup keeper, training out there on a warm, sunny day. There's the rest of the team training, but still awaiting. The GOAT has not arrived yet.
Michelle, I love how you set the scene with a lot of intrigue there. But take it away.
A lot of intrigue. Well, take it away. We show up at training. This is a big week now. This is presumably when Leo Messi is going to come back after a 2-month layoff for his ankle injury. The expectation was, the goal was, the target date is this Saturday's game against Philadelphia. And we show up for the training, and who's not there? Leo Messi, nowhere to be seen. So everyone else seemed to be there. He was not there. However, as the sleuths that we are in the media, when the bodyguard is near, that means Messi is here. So the bodyguard was standing there by the door to the gym, sort of just milling around, which is what happens when Messi is in the gym getting ready to come out to the field. Of course, after 15 minutes, that's all we're allowed to watch. So after 15 minutes, they said we all have to leave. And I pretty much can guess, I won't guarantee, I would guess that as soon as we left and they closed the gates, Leo Messi probably came out to train. I think that they want to keep Philadelphia guessing, is my guess. They want Philadelphia to wonder, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? What kind of condition is he in? So we do have 15 minutes of availability, but that's all they're required to give us. And it's, they're allowed to keep for him to be inside for those 15 minutes. There's nothing we can do. So my update is that the expectation and the target date was for him to return this Saturday. We believe he was in the building. He did train last week with the group. That is confirmed. He trained with the group last week. His bodyguard was there, which is a sign that he was nearby. But I personally did not see him train today.
Well, but there you go. It's something. It's some kind of a sign that maybe there's some hope for this Saturday. Remember, 7:30 kickoff on Saturday at Chase Stadium, the team back home after that 2-week break, the FIFA break. But will he be there? Remains to be seen. And it would be a big boost. I mean, they want to keep you guessing. They want to keep me guessing. More importantly, they want to keep, like you said, they want to keep Philadelphia guessing, because it would be a huge difference maker if he's there for obvious reasons. I mean, Suarez has been great. Their defense has been better. But if you drop him in there, and if he's fit, like if he's fit to go, I mean, we know there might be a little bit of a kind of getting back into it.
Maybe he wouldn't start. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe he wouldn't start. I mean, if you're Tata Martino, yes, we are talking about the best player in the world. We're also talking about a player who has not played 1 minute in 2 months. Right. That's a long time. That's a long layoff, coming off an ankle injury. A guy who's 37 years old. If you're the coach, if he's ready to go, would you start him or would you bring him off the bench? What would you do?
I mean, I think it would depend on his fitness level. It depends what I see out there in practice. If he's moving well, if he feels comfortable, if he has no ill effects, how does he bounce back the next day? All that sort of thing has to be taken into account. I don't care, as great as he is, he's physically has to be fit in that sense for me to see. Am I getting Messi? I mean, then it is Messi. And I know Messi at 70% is better than everyone else at 100%. But you want to also play the long game here. You're in the playoffs. You're building a huge lead. You don't want to do anything also to risk him in the long run. You need to have him later on for the MLS Cup chase. So I think it's that balance. I think your idea is a good one. I think he comes in maybe halfway through the game, second half, whatever, break the ice. I see this as a kind of like that, a break the ice game against the Philadelphia team.
See how they're doing. Yeah. Let's see how they're doing. The Philadelphia team that has been struggling.
Right.
If they're doing fine without him, bring him in the 60th minute. Let him play 30 minutes. Get his feet wet. Literally get him. Let him shake the rust off. Get his feet wet, and then from that point forward, there's 6 games left to have him at full, at full strength, at full speed. I mean, it is a really big boost physically and emotionally when this team is already in first place by a bit of a margin with a good cushion. Right. And now, by the way, we're going to bring in now the best player in the world. We're bringing in the World Cup winner is going to join us now for the final 6 or 7 games. Okay. How are you feeling, MLS, about that?
Yeah, I'd rather have him gradually come back. Like you said, there's 7 games left. They have a 7-point lead over the nearest team in the overall standings with the Galaxy. I mean, that's more, obviously that's 3 wins plus some help for some losses that it would take to get overtaken by LA or by Cincinnati or anybody else. So use that cushion, use them back in there little by little. And the good thing is, like we've talked about ad nauseum on the show the last few weeks for good reason, they've played well without him for the most part. So
they've played very well without him. They've been scoring a lot of goals without him. And but the emotional lift that he would give the team coming back in, not to mention, of course, the fans, that goes without saying. The stadium will go nuts the minute he's out there warming up in a uniform. I mean, just to see him on the field in the uniform is going to be a huge boost for this team when that happens. And I still think that it'll be this Saturday. But again, I did not get to see him at training today. Our next training we will get to see is Friday. And Tata Martino does speak on Friday, the day before the game. So, he will be asked, of course, the first question, what is Leo Messi's status? Right. But that question will not be able to be asked or answered until Friday.
Right. How anxious people are to see him. I'm sure his bodyguard would probably get a standing ovation at this point if it meant he was coming in right behind them. So that's how much they want him. But one guy that was at practice, as we saw, and as you pointed out in the video, was the newcomer, the new goalie. And tell us a little bit about Oscar Ustari and the fact and what he can bring to this team. Michelle, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think people were a little surprised. What? Why did they why did they sign a goalkeeper? They have Drake Callender. Why do they need a goalkeeper? Well, the backup keeper, Cesar Dos Santos, he broke his hand and he had surgery. So he's out. He's out indefinitely with a broken hand, which would mean their second goalkeeper would be Cole Jansen, who's a rookie who has been playing with the second team. They don't, they would rather have someone with more experience at this point. It's a critical part of the season. We're talking about 7 games left and then the playoffs. You bring in a guy, Oscar Ustari, he's 38 years old. Another old buddy of Messi's joins the club. This is getting to be like a big, Messi reunion here. He is from Argentina. He played with Messi on the Argentina under-20 team, on the under-23 team, played with him on a World Cup team or an Olympic team. So they know each other very well. They're friends. Oscar said today that, in fact, he has been in touch with Messi over the years, and he loves to visit Miami. Whenever he's in Miami this past year, he's hung out with Messi. And he was actually with him before the team approached him about this opportunity, because what happened is when CJ got injured, they wanted another backup keeper with some experience, and voila, what a coincidence. Messi happens to have a friend from Argentina. Another cup of mate needs to be added to the kitchen there at the team facilities. More mate, please. And we will drink mate.
I was going to say,
his return. When Messi makes his return, we will celebrate, the two of us, with some mate.
Right.
But in the meantime, he brings in an old friend, a guy who knows him. The entire coaching staff is from Argentina. There are now, I believe, 11. Believe it or not, I have to count. I think there is a full squad from Argentina. In fact, someone joked at the training session today, asked him, hey, with 11 Argentine guys, how do you think this team would do in the Argentine league or something like that? There are so many Argentine players on this team, and this is the latest one. He's 38 years old. He has experience. He played in Spain. He played in England for Sunderland. He played in Spain for Getafe. He's played at Boca Juniors, and he played at Pachuca in Mexico. So he's played all over the world. And he told us today that he has been following MLS, and he has attended many MLS games, Inter Miami games in particular. When he comes to vacation in Miami over the last year, he had been attending Inter Miami games. So I did get a chance to talk to him, and we're going to watch a clip from him.
Yep, here you go.
De todo punto de vista. No jugando, me gusta hablar mucho con los chicos también. Hay cosas que por ahí no se ven dentro de una cancha, que luego suceden dentro de la cancha, pero que se hacen fuera, ¿no es cierto? Entonces, me parece el tiempo que llevo en el fútbol, que ya es bastante, me da esa condición también de ver otras cosas, de valorar también otras cosas y a veces tener la tranquilidad para tomar ciertas decisiones.
¿Qué sabes de Drake Calendar?
¿En qué sentido?
Como portero.
No, buenísimo, buenísimo. Aparte lo he estado viendo, he venido a ver partidos del Inter, entonces lo que me sorprendió, lo bien que me trataron cuando llegué, entonces habla de la clase de persona que es.
Yeah, he talked a little bit about what you said.
Yeah, for those who don't speak Spanish. Yeah, for those who don't speak Spanish, he said, what does he bring the club? He brings, an extra pair of eyes of experience. He said he likes to talk to the young players, to the chicos. He likes to talk to the young guys, maybe give them some tips, give them some outside views. He wants to help Drake Calendar in whatever way he can. He wants to help the players, the rest of the team, the young players in particular, with his experience, with his years of experience on and off the field. And then he was asked, what does he think of Drake Calendar? And he said, in what sense? And then he said, as a player, whatever the reporter asked. He said, as a player, he's fantastic. And also, he said, what really struck me is how well I was received, the welcome that I got when I arrived here. And that shows the kind of class individual that Drake Calendar is. So, Drake knows that he's the starter on this team. He knows that he's a leader and a co-captain of this team, but they wanted a backup who has some experience just in case something were to happen to Drake or whatever. They didn't want to throw Cole Jansen in there, in that kind of a situation.
Right.
So now they've got a guy who's played in big games. He's played in Europe. He's played in Mexico, played in South America. And he happens to be from Argentina, and he happens to be one of Messi's longtime friends. So what are the odds of that?
No, I know. But that aside, it's like you bring in a savvy veteran. I mean, it's kind of like when a team in football signs the backup quarterback, a savvy veteran.
Exactly.
It helps in the
guy's
locker room.
38 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
It's on the field to a guy that still can play, still can, like you said, can spot things, but it's also a locker room guy and can also be very helpful, especially on a stretch run, like this, where you're trying to win a championship. You need guys with experience, whether it's here or anywhere.
This guy has won. Yeah, this guy has played in big games, and he would be a good locker room guy to, just another voice of experience, another calm, to bring calm to the group, or just to bring perspective. Like, okay, you've got 7 games left and then the playoffs, and here's how to approach all these games. This is a guy who has tremendous experience, has played for the national team, has played for big, from clubs in Europe and in Mexico and in Argentina. So, it seems like a good hire. They only signed him until the end of the year. He just signed a 4-month contract until the end of the season. It's not a long-term thing. He signed a short-term contract. He happened to have been available. He was playing in Chile, and he parted ways with the Chilean team at mid-season. I'm not sure exactly why, but he happened to be available, and here he is. So that's going to be just one more person on this team who has experience heading into a really important, critical stretch of the season.
Yeah, so it kind of makes sense that it's a short-term deal because, by next season you want Jansen to have more experience, kind of be ready to probably, resume that role behind Drake and so on. So, but let's see.
CJ Dos Santos. They'll have CJ
Dos Santos too, because he'll be
yeah.
healthy.
Cole
right.
is the third. Right. Cole
Right.
is the third keeper. They just weren't ready to elevate him to number 2. So this is why they signed him just for the short term. So this is not, Drake is not threatened. Drake was extremely welcoming to him. And this is just a backup keeper to have for the playoffs for this particular part of the season.
Yeah, and that playoff push, well, not push because they're in, but push to continue to be at the top of the standings continues on Saturday, as we've mentioned before. The Philadelphia Union, Michelle, I mean, this isn't the Philadelphia Union from when Messi got here. They're down this year. They're still fighting for a playoff spot. They're 2 points behind the threshold right now to get in to that 9th spot. They're 11th right now in the East, so it's still a desperate team that wants to get in. Tell us a little bit about this matchup and what Inter Miami needs to do to kind of stiff arm them and not let them interrupt this run.
Yeah. I'm always surprised when Philadelphia struggles because Jim Curtin is such a good coach. He really is. I think Jim Curtin is one of the best coaches in MLS. He's got, a team that he always has in the mix. The Philadelphia Union always is in the mix, seems to always be in the playoff contenders. And this year they have struggled. They really have struggled. They're in 11th. But as you know, with MLS, there's so much parity. 11th place is only 2 points out of making a playoff spot. So it's not a desperate situation yet. They still have 7 games left. They did just beat New York Red Bulls. They're coming off a win, a 2-0 win over the New York Red Bulls, which is a good, that's a really good win for them. They had a decent run also in the Leagues Cup. So, it's a team that has potential to pull off some surprises, and they have incentive. Miami has already clinched a spot. Miami's already in first place in Supporter Shield, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Philadelphia is very, very hungry. They are trying to climb. They are outside of the playoff line. They're trying to get across the playoff line. So they have a lot to play for. Jim Curtin is a really good coach. He will have this team prepared. And Daniel Gazdag, he has 14 goals. I mean, they've got guys who can score. They have some experience. Again, they have a good coach who's going to have them prepared, I am sure. And but it's Miami's home game. And if Messi comes back, even just to come off the bench, just to have him on the field is just going to energize this team, and this stadium will be rocking if Messi makes his return on Saturday. So it will be a tough game for Philadelphia, but not impossible. Nothing is impossible. I think that team has the potential to pull off some upsets.
Yeah, and we've seen it before. It's a dangerous team, can't take lightly at home, even if they're at home. But like you said, if they do get Messi back, even if it's for that maybe 40 minutes or whatever, that's going to be tremendous lift for sure. Even if it's just like we've said before, icebreaker type of thing, and get him in there. But one guy that is going to be on the field that we want to talk about, that we have talked about, and you want to see him do better in this stat, is Toto Aviles. Can he kind of curb this little card problem he's had and continue to be a contributor for this team? Michelle, you talked to him on Wednesday morning at practice. Let's take a look at what he had to say as we approach the Philadelphia.
Este problema es de mi equipo.
Nada, bueno, creo que eso es tema cada uno igual, que es la agresividad que tenemos en tema de recuperar. Creo que los latinoamericanos somos un poquito más intensos, un poquito más agresivos, y creo que no sé si estaban tan acostumbrados a eso, y creo que no nos jugó muchos favores.
That's funny. He said
So
that you
yeah,
see the
he's
passion of Latin American players on the
the
field.
passion and the aggressiveness. He said
Yeah.
he was asked about this problem, and it is a problem.
Yeah.
And he said that, it's really up to each player to fix it, and that
Right.
he thinks it's partly because Latin American players have incredible intensity and aggressiveness, and that maybe they're not used to that. This is something that they've had to get accustomed to. He does lead the league in yellow cards. I collect cards. I collect Hallmark greeting cards. My
Not the
husband makes
same.
fun of me because every time I'm at a card shop, I buy cards, and he's like, "Oh, who's that card for?" And I say, "I don't know. I just like the card. And someday when it's someone's birthday or someone's anniversary, or graduation or a wedding or a shower, I have every type of card in my closet, and I'm always ready with my cards." This is a different kind of card that you don't want to be collecting. Toto Aviles is
Yeah, you don't want
collecting yellow and
those.
red cards. He's collecting those cards, which is not a good thing to have in your closet. So they are trying to clean that up. And Tata, talking about Toto, I have to be careful. Tata was asked about Toto a couple weeks ago about this issue, and he said, "Look, he is a very good player, and I don't want him to not be aggressive. I want him to be who he is. That is why he's such a good player." He said, "My job as his coach is to teach him when and where to use the aggressiveness, and when it's going to be a problem, and how to avoid cards." But he doesn't want him to change the way that he plays. And so that's kind of a fine line that the coaches are working with players like Toto.
Yeah, it is kind of a ongoing thing where you want to see him kind of keep it in check. But it is interesting, the whole acclimation sort of for some of these players that had never played in MLS, to get used to the officiating, what they expect, that sort of thing. So it was good perspective to hear it from him, from his point of view, to see how that goes. But let's look on, and we looked at Toto in that part. Let's look at Luis Suarez now and how great he's been.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a great year. He has 16 goals. He's right now. So let's go over the Golden Boot rankings right now. Right now in first place is Christian Benteke of DC with 18 goals. Christian without the H, Arango of Real Salt Lake has 17, and then Dennis Bouanga of LAFC and Luis Suarez are tied in third place with 16. He has 16 goals over 20 games. This is a 37-year-old guy who came in with bad knees, as we talked about last week. Came in with bad knees at 37 with a lot of doubters, thinking, "Oh my God, this guy's getting injections in his knees. How's he going to be able to withstand the season?"
Yeah.
Here we are in September.
Oh.
He's been perfectly fine. It's been his buddy Leo Messi who's been injured, most of the season, or missed 19 games. Luis Suarez is hanging in there. He has proven to be more durable than anyone thought. And with 7 games left, he already has 16 goals. He's only 2 shy of the Golden Boot right now. I think he's absolutely in the running for the Golden Boot. And even when Messi comes back, that doesn't mean that Suarez goes out. I mean, Messi plays 9, so he will still stay in. And with Messi feeding him, on top of having his other teammates who know him so well, having Leo Messi in there may actually increase his goal production.
Right. And I think his name and people knowing around the world who he is, an obvious huge superstar name, will help. But I'm curious, the way I introduced that before, Michelle, what do you think? Do you think that perceived strength of schedule, because it's MLS as opposed to some of the leagues around the world, will be taken into account and maybe not work in his favor?
For the MLS. We're talking about the MLS Golden Boot.
Oh,
we're talking about. That's what I was talking about. I was talking about.
I thought you meant
Golden Boot.
the big one.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, an MLS guy's not going to win the big one. This one is the Golden Boot for MLS. Leading scorer in MLS. I think he absolutely has a chance to capture that. No, to be named the leading scorer in the world and win the Golden Boot, I don't think that definitely is not happening. But to win the Golden Boot for MLS, yes, I do think that, just like Inter Miami could end up with the Supporter Shield, he could definitely end up with the Golden Boot with a couple more goals, and with Messi feeding him. Like I said, his goal production may even increase from where it is right now.
Definitely. And it's been fun to watch. I mean, like I said, defying the odds, defying his age, everything. for Suarez this season. A huge part of why Inter Miami is where they're at right now as we get closer and closer to the postseason. But we've talked a lot about the home team, which is why they're the main subject of this show. But we like venturing out and talking a little bit about big picture in the world of soccer, football, you name it. And we mentioned it earlier, the U.S. men's national team has a new coach, Argentino, Mauricio Pochettino.
What are the odds?
Well, I mean, right. What are the odds? But it's amazing that the whole Argentine flavor carrying over now on the national team too. Here's a guy with a tremendous career he's had, well respected, impactfully. I think he's going to be like, what can we expect? Can this team make a jump, especially in this narrow window overall before the World Cup? How much improvement can we see from the side with him in charge before 2026?
Well, I mean, if anyone, U.S. soccer, they said they were going to aim high, and they did. They aimed high. Greg Berhalter, I mean, I like him. He's a good guy. It just wasn't happening. They had just reached a sort of, mediocrity that is not, they need to do better. And the next World Cup is going to be co-hosted by the United States on U.S. soil and Mexico and Canada. The U.S. team, they entered the Copa America this summer with high hopes because it was going to be entirely hosted in the United States, and they were the host country, and they lost in the group stage, and Panama moved on, and Canada moved on ahead of the United States. That was not acceptable. So they needed to make a change. And the question was, who were they going to get? Were they going to get someone else similar to what they've had before? This is a departure. This is honestly the most successful, the coach with the best resume, anyway, that they have ever had leading this team. Now, Bruce Arena remains the top coach who's ever coached this team because they reached the quarterfinals, in Japan and Korea in 2002. But since then, and even before then, this guy has an incredible pedigree, an incredible resume, coaching at Tottenham, coaching at PSG, coaching at Chelsea, and he comes from, we mentioned Argentina. Not only Argentina, he comes from the region of Rosario and the Santa Fe region, province, which is the cradle of coaches, which is where Tata Martino comes from, which is where Bielsa comes from. It's where Messi comes from. They call it the cradle of football, la cuna del football, the crib of football. So he comes from an area of Argentina that just has such a rich history. And by the way, he played at Newell's Old Boys. Once again, Tata's hometown team, Messi's hometown team. This guy also played for that team. So he has a really good pedigree. He has the right roots for soccer success coming from where he comes from. He speaks English, Spanish, and French, which I do think is important to reach out to the Hispanic fan base in the United States, which still, for the most part, they are going to root for their home country. But, I know the U.S. national team would like for the Hispanic market to also jump on their bandwagon and get behind them as well. And having an Argentine coach who speaks Spanish and English, I think that is going to be really good off the field. And then on the field, what does he bring? He's 52 years old. Like we said, he has all this experience. One of the things he's known for is the ability to balance handling egos while at the same time developing young talent. And I think that is really important. This team now has some big players. There may be some egos to deal with, but there's also a lot of youth coming up the pipeline. And, I really think they couldn't have done any better. Now, does it guarantee that they're going to, come into the World Cup and win or make a deep run? No, there's no guarantee. The World Cup is an incredibly difficult tournament with so many good teams from all over the world. The U.S., just because they have this coach doesn't mean that they're going to make some incredible, massive breakthrough. But I do think that this hiring is the best that they could have done. I really do. I mean, Jurgen Klopp was mentioned, and, he wasn't going to take it. Other than that, I think that this one makes perfect sense. I think that he will make a difference. I think having a completely different set of eyes on this team and on this talent, sometimes you need someone to come in completely from the outside and start from fresh. And I think he does bring the pedigree and also fresh eyes to this team.
Yeah, I think one of the gripes of this, watching this team, recent months, was the talent was there, the chemistry was not. And that's a problem that a guy like this can fix. Now, in terms of the ceiling of how much he can fix, we've talked about it. For this team to ever get to the point where it can contend with the Argentinas and the Spains and you name it, at the grassroots level, there has to be great development changes where any kid can play this game, have the means to identify and develop the superstars at home, etc. That is obviously, like, there's only so much a coach can do. But that being said, I think you can cut off this underachievement level that they've had and put them back to where they're closer to that, to where they're
they should, absolutely.
You know what I
They
mean?
should.
They're
If
a knockout.
he can't do it,
right.
Yeah.
They're a knockout stage team again in the World Cup. Whether how far they go, we'll see. But at least be where they expected to be with this golden generation, and that has fallen much short of expectation. I think that at least is something that Pochettino can do right away in this 2-year window.
Absolutely. I think he will make a difference. They have to get out of the group. They cannot lose in the group stage of the World Cup. And as one of the host countries, they probably will, not have the toughest draw. They should definitely get out of the group. I do think that he will make a difference. You talk about the grassroots thing. I want to throw in one thing. Landon Donovan was on, I believe it was on Alexi Lawless's podcast or something. He was talking last week, and he blasted the youth system. He said that he now has, child playing 7 years old or something like that. And he said he's appalled by what he sees with U.S. soccer in the United States, and that it's the parents and coaches of little tiny kids are focusing too much on results of a U8 team, of a U7 team. Like he said, he's hearing parents and coaches saying, oh, this team we're playing this week is, really good, and we need to start this guy. And maybe this player shouldn't play because we're playing this tough team. And he's like, these kids are 7 years old. This is not how we're going to get better. And that is not how he grew up in the LA area, playing on the street and playing with a lot of Central American players, kids, right, which is why he speaks really good Spanish. He grew up with a lot of Latinos learning the game on the street, the way that our inner city kids learn basketball and play basketball just on their own. And you learn to love the sport that way, and you learn to improvise, and you learn to be more creative. And that's what our basketball players do. And that's what needs to happen more in soccer, in the inner cities, in the urban areas where kids are being introduced to soccer. Just let them play. Let them play. Right. Let them enjoy. Let them learn to love the game and watch the game on TV. And that's how they're going to get better. Not having your U8 youth team coach yelling at players and figuring out lineups and formations to try to beat the other U17. And that is what Landon Donovan said is he really thinks is one of the root problems of our national team and of our national program, is that we're not doing it right from the lowest levels of the grassroots.
Right. It's the cost effectiveness too. I mean, it has to be, look, not every kid's going to want to play soccer, even if they're exposed to it, but more and more kids might, if they have the means, and if they're not just exposed to it, but if they have the means to play it from such a young age too. So that's all a big part of it. And yeah, what Landon said is true. I mean, you get better in any sport. Look, it's funny. You always want to win. You're competitive and all of that. But there are times where you could lose, but you're playing against the best competition, and that's going to make you better eventually. And that goes with anything, any sport. So those kids have to have that experience, whoever they are. If not, we're just never, he's right. We're just never going to be able to develop the talent properly that years from now we may see on the national team and making that difference to maybe finally make that jump to the level that we all hope for, that we might see one day, before we're old and gray, that see this team finally.
Right. And I think that, And I think that having a guy like this coach, Pochettino, who came up, like I said, from Argentina, from the grassroots, area of Argentina that has created so many great players and coaches, I think that background will help him also, will trickle down to the youth national teams here. And I think he's going to have a big impact. I really do.
Yeah, that's perspective too, because it may not have happened. It may not. It was in his own country, but there might be little things that he can see. And it's like, okay, this works, this doesn't, etc. And he can bring that perspective
exactly.
as well. So,
exactly. I think it was a good hire. I think it was a
definitely
really good hire.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's going to be very, very fun to see the next, year and a half, 2 years as we get closer and closer to that World Cup, which will be here, and we'll see a few games at least. I mean, maybe not the finals, but there will be some games here of the tournament.
7 games.
Miami.
7 games in Miami
overall. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Should be
all
fun.
right. So, well, we thank you once again, as always, for watching Inside Inter Miami. Remember, you can catch us if you can only listen to us. Spotify, iTunes, you name it. All the podcatchers have us, and of course, catch us on YouTube at MiamiHerald.com. Catch all of Michelle's work there as she takes everybody through this next week and through the return to action for this team. Maybe Lionel Messi against Philly. We'll see. But stay tuned. We'll have all of that next week's episode, recapping what happened against the Union. And for everybody watching, we thank you again for watching Inside Inter Miami. For Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Enjoy the games, everybody.